Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Tompkin School for the Extraordinarily Talented, Book 1 by Tabi Slick, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Oklahoma is the place to be? When the flight landed, a part of me tore at the seams, screaming to be back in the air where at least there was a chance of us crashing and blowing up. "Welcome to the Oklahoma City Airport," an annoyingly cheerful voice announced over the loudspeaker, her southern drawl making my ears ring. I couldn't believe we were being sentenced to go to a boarding school way out here. I missed the brisk New York air, the bustling streets, and most of all, I missed my friends. If I got off the plane, it would mean goodbye to everything I knew and loved. Goodbye drama team and fall productions. Hello 4-H. What made it worse was that I'd been elected to be the president of the drama team at my old school. But due to the upcoming deportation of my entire existence from everything I knew and loved, I had to decline. "This is all your fault," I whispered to my twin brother Kane, who sat next to me. He appeared to be enthralled in some book. "What was that, Izzy?" he asked, pulling an earbud out. Pursing my lips, I let out an irritated sigh. "You hurt me." Rolling his eyes, he tucked the book he was reading into his rucksack. "Sure, blame me, but you're the one who laughed." "Ha! Like that compares to what you did," I cried. "You punched him in the face!" A few passengers nearby glared at us, and I lowered my voice. "You completely broke Dad's nose." "I didn't break his nose," Kane sighed. "His lip just bled a little." "Oh, that makes it better." I rolled my eyes. "He deserved it." Grinning sheepishly, he chucked his chin-length black hair behind his ear. It was one of the features we both inherited from our beautiful mom. God rest her. That and pale skin that burned like a vampire in the sun. I missed her so much. I had to remind myself that at least she wasn't in pain anymore. But the scent of her jasmine perfume still lingered in our house, making me wish I could crawl into bed next to her and chat about boys and gossip. I shook off the tears that were about to stream down my face. I wouldn't let myself be like this in front of Kane. I had to be strong. "The fasten seatbelt sign has been turned off, folks," the woman greeted us again over the loudspeaker. "Please be careful opening the overhead bins." "Come on, let's get out of here," Kane said, standing up to grab our carry-ons before the cabin aisle got too crowded. Unbuckling my seatbelt, I followed his lead. Back home, I'd be the president of the drama team right now. Instead, I'm being deported to no man's land. "What would you have done?" Kane hissed, his voice so low I could barely hear him. "He defended that whore. You know Dad was seeing her long before Mom died, right?" Bile rose up in my throat at the mention of Dad's betrayal. "Mom's body was still warm when Dad announced he was marrying," Kane growled, frustrated by the whole situation. "No, I couldn't just do nothing. Someone had to stand up against him." "And you don't think I was going to?" I scoffed. "I didn't say that. All I'm saying is that someone had to silence him right then," Kane clarified. "Am I disappointed he kicked us out? Sure. Does that mean I regret putting him in his place?" He cocked an eyebrow, a smirk spreading across his face. "It was epic," I chuckled. "Hell yeah." He scanned the emptying aisles and motioned me to follow. "Ah!" I groaned, grabbing my shoulder back from the floor. "I don't want to step foot in Oklahoma. There's going to be nothing to do. The school probably doesn't even have a drama team." "You complain too much," he replied, as we made our way out of the smallest airport I had visited in my life. "You know who's picking us up?" I asked, wiping away the sweat that started to bead across my forehead as we stood in the heat. I was sure my makeup would melt right off my face. All I got was his name. "Geez, how can it be this hot?" Kane took the words right from me. The sound of a car door slamming got our attention. A man hopped out of an old-school cop car, eyeing the few people that were leaving the arrival gate. Making his way around his vehicle, he reached through the open passenger seat window and pulled out a piece of paper with the words Torvik Twins written on it. "The guy picking us up is a cop?" I asked skeptically. Apparently," Kane shrugged. The cop caught us staring at him and made his way over. Y'all must be Varen's kids. A wide smile spread across his face, crinkling the lines at the corners of his eyes. The name's Shane Walker. It's good to meet you. Sounds like a name from Bonanza, Kane grinned, shaking the man's hand. Kane? I scolded. Shane let out a loud chuckle. Ha! You're lucky that's my favorite show. The cop shook his head, his still smiling ear to ear. Come on, kids. I was still glaring at Kane when the cop motioned for us to get in the car. What? Kane mouthed innocently as we piled into the back seat. Unbelievable. I shook my head as I pulled the seatbelt securely into place. Without another word, Shane flipped the radio on to some honky-tonk station and sped off, leaving the airport behind us. So, how do you know our dad? I asked, trying to make awkward small talk to distract me from the fields of wild grass and cows that flew by my window. It didn't look like there was much else to do out here. Shane cleared his throat, eyeing us through the rear window. Neither of us had been allowed to sit in the front seat, even though I had called shotgun. Apparently, Shane didn't honor this method. Varen never mentioned me? Shane chuckled. That figures. Your mom and me met at the school. Then your father transferred in, and she... Wait. Our parents went to this same school? Kane tilted his head. We were both wondering the same thing. Neither of us remembered our parents mentioning where they'd gone to high school. The one and only, Shane replied. It's about a 20-minute drive from where we're headed. And where's that? I asked. You'll be staying with me and the family tonight. Then my son will drive you to the school tomorrow. Ah, I nodded, getting the feeling that there was something Shane wasn't telling us. I tried to shake it off, focusing on the endless nothingness that surrounded the highway. It took us forever to get to the next town, if it could even be called that. It had only one red light. I was sure the entire town could fit in a single block in New York. When we got to the exact part of the middle of nowhere where the cop lived, it was nearly dinner time. After passing the 100th deserted ranch, Shane took a sudden turn onto a gravel road. I hit my head on the glass of the window as we bounced our way to the front of the house. Sorry about that, Shane called from the driver's seat. Haven't had a chance to redo the driveway yet. No worries, I smiled politely. Hopping out of the car, we grabbed our bags before entering the tiny home. Kane's eyes widened when we stepped into the entryway. Chickens were the only things that welcomed us. They were everywhere. From the doormat to the key hook on the wall, everything was in the form of a chicken, or had pictures of chickens all over it. Wow, that's a neat painting. I pointed to the frame that hung just behind the doorway, trying to distract Shane from my brother's look of horror. Thanks, darling. Shane nodded his approval as he pulled off his cowboy boots. Welcome, kids, a petite woman exclaimed, a blue checkered apron tied around her waist. She looked like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, except for her enviable olive skin tone. Come on in, make yourselves at home. Is that catfish I'm smelling? Shane asked, giving his wife a peck on the cheek. Have you kids ever had catfish before? Not that I recall, I said, catching Kane's skeptical glance. That's a shame. Well, tonight you're going to have the best catfish in the Arbuckles. You'd better get Lee to help with their bags so we can eat before the food gets cold, Shane's wife replied. Oh, yeah. Shane quickly disappeared up the stairs, taking them two at a time. You must be Azara and Kane, right? The woman asked. Yes, Kane and I replied in unison. Twins, huh? She chuckled. Azara is such an unusual name. It's beautiful. Thank you. You can call me Izzy. Everyone does. I smiled. And thank you so much for having us, Mrs. Walker. You have a beautiful home. I gestured to the decor. Please, call me Sarah, and that's very sweet of you, although you can thank Shane for the chickens. When you say that you like them once, that's all you get. The room filled with the delightful sound of Sarah's laughter. She had one of those contagious laughs you couldn't help but love. Did you see that touchdown? Sarah's son walked down the stairs, his muscular frame making Shane look tiny in comparison. Yeah, I saw it, Shane replied, but you should be packing, not watching college football. Just wait until October, then it's NBA all day. Shane rolled his eyes. Kids, meet our son, Lee. He motioned to the tall man, who stood next to him. Lee, help them with their bags. Dinner will be ready soon. I wasn't sure when Sarah and Shane had left the room or how much had passed. All I could do was stare at Lee's veins that snaked their way up his arms. When our eyes met, my mouth fell open. Long, deep-set, Hazel eyes mixed with caramel twinkled back at me. "Hey, guys." Lee flashed a brilliant smile, symmetrical in every way. How was that even possible? There were very few guys I found attractive, but I would never have called them beautiful, but that was exactly what Lee was. My brother's conspicuous cough jolted me back to reality. "I'm Kane." They fist bumped before Lee grabbed one of our nearby bags. Kane gave me a weird look when Lee turned his back. Shaking my head, I waved his curiosity off. "Let's get you guys settled, then." The mere sound of Lee's voice sent butterflies in my stomach soaring. I was speechless. "And this is my sis, Izzy." Kane motioned to me when I caught his glance. I could tell he was irritated by my awkward silence. I had to say something, but what could I say? "You're gorgeous," I gasped. Heat rushed to my cheeks. "Not that." If there was one thing I should have never have uttered from my lips in that moment, that was it. Lee's eyes widened, a nervous laugh escaping his lips. Sorry," I grimaced. That was embarrassing. I don't really have a filter." I laughed at myself, hoping to get an out. "No worries." Lee winked. I began gathering my bags, hoping everyone would just forget about what just happened. I could feel Kane's eyes on me, but couldn't look anyone in the eye for fear of more humiliation. "I can get that for you," Lee said, taking my suitcase. "Thanks," I mumbled as he swung it effortlessly over his shoulder. I let my eyes wander as we followed him up the stairs to our rooms. The stairway banister and hallway above overlooked a cozy living room with one of those cast-iron wood burning stove in the corner. Family photos framed the wall next to me. Some were the normal cheesy family portraits standing in totally unnatural poses, and others were Lee's school photos. I tried not to look too closely at his photos. I had reached my limit of humiliation. "You play basketball?" Kane asked, noticing a team photo once we reached the landing. "Yeah, I'm on the school's team, point guard. You?" "A bit," Kane shrugged. "Shooting guard? We could use a new one since our last graduated." "Nah, I'm not really into team sports." I rolled my eyes. It was just like Kane to turn down an opportunity to socialize. "Suit yourself," Lee replied. "If you change your mind, let me know." Kane disappeared through the door. Lee motioned to, and we headed to the end of the hall. "Here's your space." Lee opened the door for me. I entered the room and was instantly welcomed by all things flowers, from the comforter to the matching curtains. I was sensing Lee's parents were a fan of the old-fashioned. "Thanks," I smiled as he set my bag on the bed. He smiled back, sending another swarm of butterflies to torment my insides. "So, where are you from?" he asked, leaning against the dresser. "New York," I replied. "Have you been?" He shook his head. "So, what's the school like?" I asked, curious as I'd only read what was in the pamphlet. Lee shrugged, crossing his arms. I couldn't help sneaking another glance at how toned they were. "Not much to say. Teachers are decent. Campus is nice. Your dad said it wasn't far from here?" "About 20 minutes. I'll finally be able to show off my new truck." Lee grinned. "Really?" I cocked my eyebrow. "She's a beauty, you'll see." He winked. I blushed. "What brings you to Tompkins Academy?" "It's a long story," I shrugged, not really wanting to get into all that. "How's it coming in here?" Shane asked, poking his head through the doorway. "Just showing her around," Lee replied. "I better let you get settled." "See you downstairs in a bit. Dinner's ready," Shane replied before disappearing into the hallway. Once they disappeared, I sniffed my armpits, hoping they weren't too bad. Smearing deodorant on and a fresh pair of clothes, I glanced at my reflection in the mirror. I grimaced at the giant bags under my eyes. I hadn't been sleeping well the last few weeks. I'd been waking up in night sweats. The doctor reassured me that nothing was wrong, but had given me some sleeping pills just in case. Dabbing a fresh coat of concealer on, I made my way to dinner. When I entered the dining room, Lee was helping his mom set the table. "Can I help with anything?" I asked, hoping to get another glance at Lee's dazzling smile. He didn't disappoint. "Nah, I've got it, thanks." He winked before heading back into the kitchen. Kane made his way into the room, and I was relieved he hadn't witnessed Lee wink at me. He would have given me a hard time for it, for sure. "Where is everyone?" he asked. "Lee and his mom are in the kitchen," I replied. "I haven't seen Shane." We stood in silence, not knowing if we should sit down or not. The TV was on in the corner, donning ancient bunny ears. The program changed to the evening news, and their sign behind the reporter caught my attention. "It's been 10 days since the disappearance of Anthony Moretti," the reporter announced. "Moretti had been attending summer classes here at Tompkins Academy until last week. School has yet to comment on the matter, but lead investigators say it's most likely another runaway. Another runaway? I wondered. Kane and I shared a glance. From the worry in his expression, I could tell he was thinking the same thing. We don't need to hear about all that now, do we? I jumped at the sound of Shane's voice as he entered the dining room. He grabbed the remote and switched off the TV, turning the radio on instead. Ah, Rascal Flatts. Everybody likes them. He smiled triumphantly as if he had found common ground. At least this isn't his usual Buck Owens, Lee said. Both Lee and Sarah were carrying huge dishes of food. Buck Owens ain't so bad, Shane protested. Whatever you say, Lee laughed. Let's eat. Sarah gestured for us to take a seat. Boy, I am starving, Shane chuckled, dishing a huge portion of catfish out onto his plate. So what was all that about the missing student at the school? I asked in an attempt to make small talk while spooning the sweetest corn I'd ever had in my life into my mouth. Everyone at the table, save for Kane, froze. Kane's fork scraping against his plate echoed in the silence. Sarah's eyes bugged out, and I was starting to get the feeling like they didn't like talking about the school. Lee looked down at his plate, not making eye contact. Yeah, it's a darn shame. Shane broke the silence, taking a bite of his fish. The kid must have been homesick. I spoke to Detective Adams, and he said he's checking with his parents up in Nebraska. He'll be fine. He patted his wife's hand. Sarah seemed to relax. I sure hope he gets back home safe. I just don't know why he would run away and not tell anyone. He's just a kid. He shouldn't be traveling by himself. Sarah shook her head. The concern in her eyes seemed sincere, and I felt awful for bringing it up. I'm sorry, I offered, hoping I hadn't ruined dinner. It's okay, Shane smiled, shoveling more food in. Sarah, this catfish is your best yet. Oh, good. Sarah's shoulders relaxed as the conversation changed. I tried to keep up, but I couldn't stop thinking about the missing student and the reporter's emphasis on runaways. How many students had run away from the school? And why would Shane, a cop, be avoiding the subject if it was really just a runaway? There were millions of questions running around in my head, but one that kept popping up made me feel sick. What kind of school had our dad shipped us off to?